Hi, with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the tactics used by various groups, globalist controlled groups, many of them listed as charities, for goodness sakes, and their tactics to shut down any free speech that is questions or pushes back against the globalist ideological narrative. Now, remember that the globalist government is completely illegitimate, and they know that. So they have to artificially construct legitimacy by telling a lot of lies, which they do, but also by preventing other people from speaking. That's as important as the lies they tell and the narrative they spin. Now, how can they do this without drawing attention to themselves? Because if they overplay their hand on shutting down other speech or shutting down questions, people, the persuadable public, as they contemptuously call the mass of Western citizens, the persuadable public will start, well, why are you trying to shut down other speech? If you've got the best way of doing things, as you claim, why are you so afraid of what others might say? Then so it wouldn't really work for them. So they need to achieve the shutting down of alternative points of view or questions. They need to do this by saying that they, the globalists, are doing something virtuous. We're only stopping hate. That's all we're doing. We're stopping hate. We're stopping racist. We're stopping Nazis. That's all we're doing. We're fighting the Nazis. We're not doing anything. We're the good guys. Everyone else is a Nazi, but not us. So that's the thing. But still, they've got to do this through subterfuge. And something that's coming out, at least in my opinion, in Elon Musk's tiff with the ADL. Now, certainly as I understand it, Mr. Musk is saying that the ADL has been intimidating and threatening the advertisers that would otherwise advertise on Twitter, or X as it's now known. And that this is causing these advertisers to either reduce their advertising on X or indeed not advertise at all. And this is happening in the areas where the globalists are in maximum control at the moment, Britain, the United States, and so on. So now the claim is that the ADL is again, as I understand it at least, the claim is that because Mr. Musk has dropped what did they call it? The trust and safety team, which was chock full of leftist activists. Hardly trust and safety in my view, but and they were reliably shutting down any voices the globalists didn't like, and doing so with relish and glee. Once that ended, the claim that again, as I understand it, the ADL is making is that since all those leftist activists, many of whom were Jewish, by the way, were thrown out or let go, that there's been an increase in hate speech, anti-Semitism, and so on, and the ADL is only trying to stop the hate. We're only trying to stop the hate. The Nazis, the hate, Hitler. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to shut down people with alternative points of view. No. We're trying to stop Hitler. Now, as much as you may laugh at that, it's been interesting because whenever I've seen interviews on where supposed anti-hate activists have appeared, so we all know, and they use the assertion method, which they can get away with in the leftist or the globalist media. Well, we all know that hate speech has increased 10,000 million% on X since Elon Musk took over. Thousands of millions of percent. Hate speech. Every comment is hate speech. Hitler. And so now and again, if they're being interviewed in somewhere like The Guardian or one of the really strident leftists, MSNBC, they'll just nod and go, "Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, we all know that." But when they get interviewed in a more centrist, either minimally or non-globalist news outlet, when they make this claim, the interviewer will say, Okay, so you're saying that hate speech is everywhere, it's on the rise, it's massive, anti-Semitism, Hitler, da 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 da. Can you give me an example? And then suddenly there's almost a rabbit in the headlights look, deer in the headlights look by the activist. Oh well, I can't think of any of it. I don't really know. Well, you're saying it's everywhere, and it's there's anti-Semitism. Can you give me just one? Can you want to take a moment and look it up on your iPhone or something? Oh, well, I don't know. I can't think. Oh, well, I just don't know. Oh, well, you've come on here to tell us that hate speech and anti-Semitism is everywhere, and it's so bad that serious action has to be taken. Everyone everywhere has to be warned about it. Can you give me just one example of this anti-Semitism or this hate speech? And they can't. And I've seen them being caught out. Now, you'd think they'd come at least prepared and have a few sort of ready to go, pull them out of their pocket or look them up on the phone or something. But you think they'd be ready, but in fact, they're not. Now, I'm not a big Twitter user at all, so an ex-user, so I suppose I can't really comment, or comment as well as some others could. But if there was, I didn't think there was any anti-Semitism or hate speech to begin with. Even months ago, and when Mr. Musk took over, I didn't notice there was any change. There were some voices that came back on that had been previously cancelled, but I don't recall anything that would be hate speech. But I guess we need to look at hate speech, put it in some wider perspective. So if someone says, "Oh, I disagree that someone can change their gender to be a cat," then, hate speech, Hitler. So it depends on your definition of what constitutes hate speech, and they can turn something like that. Well, somebody identifies as a cat. If you disagree with that, that's hate speech. Because don't you know that people identify as cats are fragile, mentally fragile? Do you know do you know that 900,000 million % of these people could commit self-harm and suicide? So if you disagree with that person, be a cat or even question, then you're attacking their identity. You attack their identity and you're attacking their fragility. You attack their fragility, they may kill themselves. And if they do kill themselves, then you did it, which means you're hate speech, which means you're Hitler. So they can construct all these idiotic and perverse connections. And if you're an ideological fanatic in the social justice space, if anything, they do that very well or consistently. So, but I can't see this. I can't see it, and I've seen activists come back and say, "Oh, that's hate speech," and I struggle to find the hate in it. Maybe I'm just a bit slow on the uptake. Now, I went on to there are various websites of organisations that purport to be fighting hate. Now, in order to be fighting hate, they have to see hate everywhere, and I mean everywhere. So there's no area of society where they can't identify or construe through however strangled a means to see hate. Now they've got there's some database. I think it's called the database of hate symbols, and I tell you what, if every single hate symbol on there is Nazi related, or certainly that I could see. Maybe there's more, but without the Nazis, they wouldn't have a fucking hate symbol. None of the communist hate symbols, none of the communist propaganda, none of the hate symbols from Pol Pot or the Stalin regime or Mao in China or any of these things. None of those are there. It's only focusing on the Nazis, and it's very much a Jewish centric thing. So their ADLs, understandably, by the way, is focusing or purports to focus on hatred or alleged hatred against Jews, but they see anti-Semitism in every single guise. They also have the added sort of dimension, which is very much a sociologist thing, of what are the lead-in causes of hate, and they use hate as a wider generic thing, meaning any situation that may or could or possibly might lead to disadvantaged for Jews. That's really where they're going, and they've broadened the net very considerably. And for example, oppression of black people is oppression of a marginalized group. Jews are a marginalized group, therefore oppression of black people is the same as oppression of Jews. Therefore, black racism or racism against blacks is actually racism against Jews. All you have to do is just sort of, it's like going from first cousin to second cousin to third cousin. They're all cousins. It's all racism. It's all hate. It's all fascism. It's all Hitler. And they go down that path. Coming back now to the interaction between, these are people purporting to fight hate, by the way, when in fact they're pushing and peddling hate, hatred against white people, hatred against white society, hatred against Christians, all this sort of thing. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's somehow a virtue. But if it's any other form, then, Hitler. Now, again, the deep state, the globalist project is illegitimate. No one's ever going to vote for it. No one's ever going to approve it. They can't get it voted for. They cannot legitimize themselves. They have to rig everything in order to push the global. They have to rig elections. They've got to rig the media. They've got to rig the narrative. They've got to rig the facts. They have to rig and stack the deck on everything in order to get the globalist project implemented. They know that. Therefore, they are absolutely lacking in legitimacy, and they know that too. And it makes them nervous. That nobody really wants it, and they're lacking in legitimacy there. Sure, they can buy off a small number of people with the waterfront mansions and people that couldn't do any better than working as a Walmart greeter and give them powerful jobs to lord it over the that sort of thing, well paid. They can do that, but they cannot be legitimate, and they know it. The only way they can get legitimacy is to put their case to the people and have it voted for, and they just can never win on that basis, and they know that too. So they have to, again, rig and stack everything, and they need to do this through various means. So what happens is that the deep state controlling the government at this point will then go to some third party and say, look, we don't want to go directly to harass. We'll do this. But we don't want to go directly to harass and threaten and intimidate Twitter or X, as it now is. But we want you to go there and say that we want you to harass their advertisers. It's not a good look if the government harasses the advertisers. So we want you to harass the advertisers, and we want you to use the invented, fabricated pretext that they're engaging in anti-Semitism or not adequately policing anti-Semitism. Can you throw a few swastikas in there, please, just to gin it up, and so you harass that, and that'll put pressure on them. Now, and you ask them to say, well, we won't do this if you shadow ban or shut down or close down the following accounts. So these are the accounts we want you to threaten Twitter with or X with. And say, look, shut these accounts down. We won't harass your advertisers. Just so happens that all those accounts question or push back against the globalist project and the globalist ideology, which is why they want them shut down. One voice only is allowed. One voice and one voice only. Any other voice, any other point of view, any other position is Hitler. And so rather than just engage with the particular online commentator, perhaps rather engage with, say, well, this is why this person is wrong. This is factually they're in error. Or no, they can't do it. They can't win. They can't win on that. They cannot win on a factual level playing field, the globalists, and they know that. So they had to find other means. So accuse everyone of being Hitler or Nazi or hate or this or that. That's who better to go to than say a group that purports to represent be fighting against hatred of Jews. What better group to go to than them? Because then they've got this moral cover. So we're only fighting hatred. We're fighting Hitler, and then that gives them the moral cover then to go and do the work of the deep state and shutting down alternative voices. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.